My wife and I entered into an open marriage at her request. Now she wants to close it up. Hello Reddit Eyes Plus here. My wife, 37F and I, 39M, have been married for 15 years, and together we've raised two wonderful kids, a 14-year-old daughter and a 12-year-old son. On the surface, we were the perfect family, but about a year and a half ago, everything changed. My wife came to me one evening, dropping a bombshell that shook the foundation of everything I thought we had. She wanted an open marriage. Now, I'm no prude, but the idea hit me hard. I've always believed that marriage is a bond between two people, and honestly, it was the last thing I ever expected to hear from her. She said she felt bored with just us and wanted to experience more. A gut punch, to say the least. I was against it, strongly. I had had 5 partners before we got married, while she had only been with me. Maybe that was part of her frustration. But then she gave me an ultimatum. Either we open our marriage, or she was prepared to file for divorce. We both knew we didn't want that, not with the kids involved. So, despite every fiber of my being screaming not to, I agreed, but with conditions. No one was to be brought back to our house. We wouldn't talk about who we were seeing. The kids wouldn't know, family wouldn't know, and everyone involved would have to get tested beforehand. And one more thing, no one we both knew. I was suspicious she already had someone lined up, and I was right. Less than 24 hours after we agreed, she went out and didn't come home until 4 a.m. That was the first time the full weight of it hit me. She was really out there with someone else. I didn't sleep that night. It took months before I got comfortable with the idea of seeing someone myself. I wasn't interested in it, but part of me thought, if this is how things are now, I might as well play by the new rules. That's when I met Amber. Our daughters are in the same marching band, and Amber, recently divorced, wasn't looking for anything serious. So we started casually seeing each other. At first, it felt like cheating. I couldn't shake the guilt, but over time, I adjusted, and it turned out Amber and I were a good match. It was no strings, no expectations, and weirdly enough, my own marriage started to feel better. Our sex life became more passionate. My wife and I were happier, or so I thought. Then, a few months ago, my wife's affair came to an abrupt halt. Her partner was in an open marriage too, but his wife didn't know, and keeping it a secret during COVID became too hard. It wasn't long after that my wife decided she wanted to close our marriage again. But there was a twist. She discovered that Amber was my partner after a chance meeting during a school event. Suddenly, she wasn't okay with the arrangement anymore and demanded I end things with Amber. I reminded her that our original agreement didn't prohibit this, and she had no problem when it was her side of the bed being filled. She didn't like that. That's when she hit me with the final curveball. If you don't end it with Amber, it's over. I told her I'd consider closing things, but only on 2 conditions. First, it stays closed forever. Second, she signs a document waiving spousal support if we ever divorce. That set her off. She refused outright. My wife is a stay-at-home mom, and she knew that signing something like that would leave her financially vulnerable. But from my side, how could I trust her? She was the one who wanted this, and now she wanted out when it wasn't on her terms. I wasn't about to be played. I confronted her about how she found out about Amber, and after some digging, I discovered she had been tracking me through my phone. She followed me to Amber's house months earlier, and then deliberately introduced herself to create friction. I couldn't believe the level of deceit. All this time, she was manipulating the situation, trying to force my hand. I was angry. Angry at her for breaking my trust, and angry at myself for going along with something I never wanted. But the worst came when I found out she had been telling our daughter that I was cheating on her. She told our 14-year-old that I had moved in with Amber after a fight, even though I'd been staying in a hotel to cool off. I showed my daughter the receipts and tried to explain the situation as best as I could, without dragging her into adult problems. I was furious, but I stayed calm for her. The next day, I reached out to the wife of my wife's former partner. She had no idea about the affair. I spilled everything. I didn't care anymore. When my wife found out, she exploded, accusing me of ruining that man's life and violating the confidentiality of our therapy sessions. But to me, it was clear. She had already crossed every line, and now she was paying for it. We haven't spoken since. Therapy hasn't helped, and every time I look at her, I see the betrayal, the lies, and the manipulation. I know deep down that divorce is the only way forward, but every time I try to make the call to an attorney, I feel physically sick. I never wanted this to happen. I wanted to save our marriage. I feel like a failure. But sometimes, no matter how hard you try, you can't fix what's already broken.